Okay. Okay. How do I? Bam. Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name is Doc. I do work here. Please also welcome Paul, Paul West, our senior software developer. We call him Papa Bear. This is his badge. Welcome to the Phantasma State of the Chain. I just want to preface really quickly that I am a little bit under the weather, so if I cut the camera or whatever, I just have whatever plague my child brought home from kindergarten, but that's okay. We're gonna get into the meat of this. Welcome everybody. Yeah, sorry, no face paint today, Miguel. My kid dressed me up as a tiger the other day, and it was real special with the face paint. So yeah, sorry about that. Not gonna do that. Hey everybody, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. I want to give people just a minute or so to pile in here before we kind of get into things, because I am feeling a little under the weather. We're going to try and keep this tight. We will go over the current roadmap, the updates, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A from the commenters. For anyone who may be joining us who is not familiar with Phantasma, Phantasma is a layer 1 blockchain. We are built on C#, making us exceptional and very unique in the blockchain world. We have a very amazing technology with our smart NFTs. A lot of people say they have smart NFTs, but in reality, they're just kind of like an API that helps you fetch your metadata. But with us, we have a programmable layer for our NFTs. So it means we have a ROM and a RAM layer. The ROM layer is immutable. The RAM layer is updatable. And we have some really cool stuff like a Unity SDK. So for game designers, it allows you to integrate more deeply your functions into your client, be able to make calls from your client to update your metadata. We're great for things like ticketing. We can nest and infuse NFTs. We can mint liquidity into NFTs and do a lot of other really great, amazing stuff that you can't find anywhere else. So in the past year, we have been doing quite a bit to upgrade the chain. We've refactored code, we're adding features, and we are getting this thing purring like a kitten, which is part of these monthly state of the chain updates that we're now doing. So without further ado, we've got about 25 people in here. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, Paul. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. Sorry to hear you're under the weather, though.
It's okay. I got my Earl
keep that,
Grey.
you can keep that crap over there, please.
I've given it to my daughter to give it. The entire family's down right now, man. It is
The kid
pretty brutal, sir.
Kid crud's the worst ever, man.
Yeah, it is. But we love them. Okay, so where would you like to begin, Senior? Shall I pull up the updates first? I believe we discussed.
Yeah, I
Right.
discussed a little bit about what were, the
Pop
updates in general and why we started that. One thing is, as we talked about last time, changing up the way we were doing our roadmap as opposed to having, fixed things for quarters. As part of that, I also thought that it made more sense to also list out our accomplishments when we would do our state of the chain updates, because I don't think everybody really understands everything that we're actually doing behind the scenes. It seems like, you have 6 or 8 roadmap items, and if you may or may not make direct progress on each one of those, but you're also working on a lot of other things that either come up, or maybe even some of those items are required for the roadmap, but it doesn't really look like it applies. So I asked everybody on the team to keep track of everything they were doing. And at the end of the month, we'll compile a list of all the things that we actually did for the month, because I think it shows the activity level. It shows that we're really working our asses off back here, even if the roadmap itself may not necessarily reflect on the specific roadmap items how much work we've done. So I think I think it behooves us to make sure the community understands how hard we are working every day. I'm doing 7 days a week just because that's what I do. I work all the time. We've got tech working. We hired another dev. We have Alex working. We have our biz dev team working. Everybody is busy doing actual uh, productivity for
Hmm.
the chain. And so I wanted to make sure and show this massive list of just accomplishments, things
Yeah.
actually done.
It's an awesome change log for the month. So let's go ahead. Well, I didn't want people to read ahead, so I took it off. Let's go ahead and put it on the no reading ahead on the screen. Paul,
All right.
were you a guy who read ahead in school in books when they had books in school?
I was the guy that skim read the day before
Hmm.
um, it was due.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was the
Yeah.
guy who did that book report the night before,
Oh
like
yeah.
tried to skim through the book, hit the highlights, and do the book report. I was like,
Yeah, story of my life, man.
yeah,
Story, except
exactly.
for with
So,
history. I always read my history books like way, way, way ahead because my favorite. That's my jam. All right, let's get into it. Let's start off with the voting.
yeah, I'm not going to go through the voting too much. We've done some upgrades there and some modifications there, but there's still a long way to go with it. Um, I, I of the opinion that we might even need to redesign some portions of it, and that's still in discussion. I mean, it's functional now. There's a lot of good parts to it, but I think there's a lot more that needs to be done there. But we have been working on it, moving it in the right direction.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. We want to make sure that once voting is deployed, that it works seamlessly as on the 10 because we wouldn't want there ever to be an error with
yeah,
something
absolutely.
that dictates the future of the blockchain.
Yeah, and we just want to make it easier.
Yeah.
And that's the, that I think we're going to spend a little bit more time as we're working on it on user experience
Hmm.
as well as functionality. That's
Yeah.
the one of the things that I don't think we spend enough time on is user experience.
Hmm.
That's significant, which is basically usability.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
Um,
Okay. Want to
the
move
tomb
on here?
updates.
Tomb
Yeah, the tomb
updates.
updates. We've done it. We've as we're moving forward, especially looking towards um, bringing on, kind of going in this direction of making it easier for EVM devs. We're looking at some of the ways that the current tomb infrastructure, the features and functionalities are lacking
Hmm.
in certain areas. And so when we're doing this, we're also realizing, there's different things that we need to add, different features, functionalities, things that we need to, rough patches we need to smooth out. And so there's been a few of them. We actually have, over the past few days, we've actually gotten a few other ones. Um, but you'll continue to see regular tomb updates because this is significant. This is my main focus on all of this is getting tomb where it's functional and I can actually take a Solidity contract and port it over to tomb, which may be a manual process
Hmm.
until we can get the transpilot completely working, but it may be a manual process. But if we're missing some key functionality, and one that's not on here that Tech and Sergio actually have worked on in the past couple of weeks is better event emissions. So you actually have the event name that's emitted along with the parameters. So
Right.
now we can actually start doing event listening and management and other things like that are dealing with events, which allows you to build off-chain processes that react to actual contract events,
Right.
which is huge,
Hmm.
significant. And so we've had a few hiccups there. Um, and I don't think it's on here, but it's one of the other things we did was be able to have imports in the Tomb compiler, and that's massive. So we're not stuck with so you could actually have a Tomb contract that actually has an import section. You can import other standardized contracts similar to as you do with Solidity.
Hmm.
That actually creates shorter contracts because you can import previously written contracts that have already been vetted for security and
Yes.
functionality and speed. So you don't even
Hmm.
have to import that. So you just import that code and it brings it into the contract. So it's just
Exactly.
a much better way to do it.
For example, just like Uniswap, how if you go to almost any other DEX, you see a very familiar structure, front end, whatever, importing code, or Open Zeppelin, which is a standard
Yes.
among the community. This is how most smart contracts are built. It's tested, it's repeatable. We know they're safe. So that's a huge function to bring in. Just trying to add like a little extra clarity for those who may not be completely technical to know why this is such an important feature because it allows us to replicate time-tested contracts and bring that same logic over to Phantasma.
Yeah, and that's one of the, as we move forward, one of the very first collections, contracts we'll be bringing over is Open Zeppelin.
Hmm.
We're going to create a tomb version of the Open Zeppelin library that will give a lot of standardized contracts, a lot of standardized functionality, but it's also one of those low-level sets of contracts that we know is fully functional, fully usable, that has the features that there is a wide spectrum of what Solidity provides. And this will help us to understand what might be missing from Tomb or what might need to be smoothed out in Tomb.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it also will help us document. We realize that not everything from a Solidity contract is going to go into Tomb because EVM is not Phantasma.
Right.
However, we will fix what we can in Tomb or add or modify what we can in Tomb, but we will document that last mile of what can't be ported over because of a paradigm shift in the way the
Hmm.
chains work.
Hmm.
And that documentation will become the path for how to bring on EVM developers.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
between this is what you actually can do, here's the last mile that you can't do because of a paradigm change, and here's how you do it.
Right. Right.
And so I don't even know how many of the contracts are in the Open Zeppelin library, but 100.
A lot. Yeah.
And so by the time you port all of those over, you have um, a very solid base for what is now doable.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Not only that, being able to import familiar logic. So, if those unfamiliar with Open Zeppelin, it's
absolutely,
not just like, hey, I go to openzeppelin.com, they got a bunch of stuff pasted up. There's an entire community of developers who are in there asking questions, proposing changes and things like that. So it is a process. So being able to bring over these familiar systems is also going to hopefully lend to our attractiveness for developers to come in and look at things that they're familiar with and be able to discuss them at length, in some sort of forum or channel or on the Discord or whatever. And that's how things grow and that's how things improve. All right, over time is these type of discussions and testing and getting people up into the test environment and trying stuff out. So that's very exciting.
it
That's
is.
the thing I'm most excited about, to be
Yeah, and
honest with you.
it's one of those that it's good to document the small changes that we're making along the way,
Hmm.
um, so everybody understands that this isn't a quick process. This is going to take a while, and it's going to be
Hmm.
a little fix here and a change there and an update there. Um, but every time we do it, we're closer. We're closer to the goal.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, let's move on. Uh, VM.
Yeah, we got you made some changes to our virtual machine and the RPCs. We actually had Ghost Market was having some issues with RPC, and it was more about error messages and a couple things. But we did solidify that quite a bit, and
Good.
so as we're moving forward, this is another one, and we'll probably end up doing a lot more work on the VM and the RPC as we start pushing more volume. So
Hmm.
those are going to be a continuous improvement type of thing.
Right.
Once we get the RPCs hammered on, start doing 1 million transactions, every day or multiple millions,
Hmm.
obviously we're going to have to keep bolstering those.
Yeah, yeah. You can't
In the
just put
sake of
like the
VM.
the finger in the dike to hold back the water.
Yeah, so
It's
those are
always
going to
like
be,
this, you
yeah,
build and you scale.
absolutely.
That's part of scaling. So
Absolutely. So those will be continuous improvements, and we'll continue to have improvements on those as we go along.
yeah, 100%.
So the
Yeah.
API is actually something that we're refactoring because of changes to the Explorer. Alex has been working diligently on that and making improvements, and he's made some suggestions on how to provide better endpoints. One of the problems we had was the endpoints were sending back massive amounts of data when maybe you only need a little bit of the JSON or a little bit of the information, but it was sending this information and then a ton of other things, like sending an account, but it was also sending every transaction that account did, when in fact all they needed was the account info. So we've modified the API to be able to, first of all, we're going through a process. First, we will make it so that all of the extra information is part of an extended parameter. So if I say extended, then yes, I'll get everything. If I say send it false, well, then I'll just get just what I need. And eventually we'll actually deprecate those and make those into their own endpoints. The goal is to be able to move it in a direction that doesn't currently does not affect anybody, any consumers of the API, so nothing gets broken.
Hmm.
And we've marked them as deprecated, and so eventually they will be removed in one of the future versions. Um, one of the issues that we're having is or a change that we're making in, especially in the API, is currently the API points directly to the chain. And the issue is the chain is scalable, but I think that we would actually be better served and our users would be better served to take the API and go against our Postgre database that it is already collated and managed by the Explorer service. So the
Okay.
Explorer service gets the blocks as they're produced, reads all the information, and then disseminates it to a very normalized database
Hmm.
that is very structured. And then the Explorer UI reads from that database.
Hmm.
Well, the goal is to move our API to read from this database that already has everything normalized, standardized, translated, converted,
Hmm.
bytecode, and those kind of things,
Hmm.
and so it makes our API much faster.
Right.
And so the API was refactored in a way that allows us that has a standardized front end, and we can just change which backend we actually are using, whether it's the chain
Hmm.
or the Explorer database. And
Okay.
so going forward, at some point, right now it's doing the chain. At some point, we'll switch it to use the Explorer database. And fortunately, no consumers will know any difference.
Good.
But
Good.
this allows us to continually refactor the database to make it faster, more efficient, provide extra endpoints for whatever purpose. And it's also completely scalable. If we start getting, 1 million requests per minute, we can just scale up the server to
Hmm.
higher CPU, higher RAM, or even,
Right.
potentially splitting the servers off.
Sure. Because we could only do so much TPS on chain. So anything we can do to
Yeah,
reduce the calls and the strain to the chain, being able to lean out that service and get that data from somewhere else is advantageous for everybody.
absolutely. So that it gives us a scalable solution and one that we can actually manipulate. When you go to start manipulating the actual chain data to be able to serve better information to the API, you run into consensus problems and all kinds of other things.
Hmm.
However, once you start running directly from the database itself, from the Postgre database, now we can make changes on that. We're not worried about consensus
Right.
because this is
Right.
just an information store at this point.
Yep. 100%. All right. This is a big topic, just general. The ETH BNB from StuckSwap's been airdropped to the affected wallets. Affected.
Yeah, well, I want to hit the DEX and token swapper real quick.
Oh,
Uh,
shoot.
we
Sorry. Missed that.
we we talked about this on the last day of the
Yeah.
chain that we would be deprecating them. They've actually been deprecated. The code is now um, completely deprecated and unusable. Before it had been deprecated in a comment, now it's been removed, and we're moving more. We're definitely moving to alternatives for those. But as far as being in the code, we decided that we would completely remove them because we did not want the option or the opportunity for who knows what, but an exploit. And so
Yeah.
it was one of those, get rid of them. There's really no reason to
Yes.
have it.
100%.
Um, it's kind of like closing all the doors.
Hmm.
If we're not going to use that room anymore, close the door and be
Hmm.
done with it,
Yeah.
just for safety and security measures.
100%.
All right, FBNB from Stuck Swaps. Yes, we went through and looked at every Stuck Swap. We verified every address, whether it received its ETH or BNB, and made a complete list. And we went through and airdropped all the ETH BNB from the Stuck Swaps to all of the affected wallets. So
Okay.
that was. Um, we're not done with all the Stuck Swaps. We're not done with everything, but we're making progress. We're stepwise. We're working through it.
We're definitely making headway, and we appreciate the continued patience for those who may still be affected by that because the stuck swaps are a bit of a tangly tangly mess to get through. So it does take time. It is very good. That's one of the big remaining hanging chads from things that affected the chain last year. So it's really nice to see some major projects. You know what I'm trying to say? Stuff happening, good stuff happening.
Um,
Okay.
and we also added one new developer. It was down to the last item, but that's okay. We added one new developer
Yeah.
that is helping us currently with ledger integration.
Yes.
Tech and the new dev are working on that, and it's a challenge. And it's because we're using a different type of system than what most of the samples are for, because they're EVM and other stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
But they're working through it and making great progress. Actually, got it coming up on the, showing up on the ledger, the little screen, the
Uh-huh.
Phantasma and stuff. It's pretty cool. It's neat to
Yeah.
see that actually working.
Yeah.
So a couple little minor issues, but they're still working on that.
Good. Good.
Um,
All right. Inflation.
yeah, so we went through and refactored the inflation events. There was the math behind it was a little bit screwy. I think what had happened is over time it had been modified without looking. Individual pieces had been modified without looking at the whole, and in
Hmm.
doing so, things got a little messed up. And they weren't
Okay.
terrible, but when you start adding an extra percent here, an extra percent there, without taking everything else into account,
Yeah.
then it starts getting a little bit off.
Yeah.
So it was refactored and adjusted so that it's actually exactly what it was supposed to be according to the white paper.
Good.
So
Very
that
good.
should solve that.
Very good.
Um,
The the gas
the
contract covers that
remove
as
the
well.
yeah, it
Okay.
was the,
All right.
make sure that everything works as designed. And as discussed on the last day of the chain, remove the need for the sole master to deploy contracts. Massive, just massive. That's I see that there's a handful of roadblocks, and this was one of the more significant ones.
Hmm.
And so I'm really happy to report that that's live now.
Yeah, me too.
The Docker support for development testing, we still have a ways to go with it. It's still not as user friendly as we want, but it is better. Updated some packages, made it a little better a little more stable, I guess a little more expected performance setting it up.
Hmm.
And it should work much better now. I'm not saying it's where I need it to be. And eventually we'll have it so that perhaps you won't even have to have a Docker. But for now, this is how it has to be done.
Can you quickly
Um,
explain what Docker does? I mean, I have an idea, but I don't even think that I know the full.
you could basically think of a Docker as um, an encapsulated virtual machine
Right. Okay.
that is pre-configured to run some software in a pre-configured environment.
Okay. Right.
So it's kind of one of those, run a Docker and it runs the chain for you.
Hmm.
And then now, and it's almost like its own computer by itself.
Hmm.
And
Right.
now I can interact with that computer with my development environment.
Right. So your instanced local environment that you spin up.
Yeah, and it's still kind of a pain to use, in my opinion, but it's kind of what we're stuck with at the moment.
Hmm.
And there may be options in the future, but for right now, of all the things we do, we have to do, if it works, we're just going to leave it like that. We may make it a little easier, but we're probably
Hmm.
going to still stick with Docker.
Yeah.
Eventually, that may change.
100%. All right. The code.
The code. This will continue. We'll be continue to make lots of changes to continue to make it more stable. One of the things that we actually decided to do, and this was based upon even Sergio's feedback, was um, we stopped doing a lot of namespace renaming and other things that would affect other services that use the existing code base. But we are continuing to get rid of code that is deprecated rather than just sitting here as deprecated code. And my opinion is we can always go back and look at the history in GitHub. So if it's deprecated, get it out of here.
Hmm.
Just remove it. If
Yeah.
it's commented, it was one of the things I was kind of shocked with when I first came in and looked at the code. There's a lot of commented code. There was, you go and you look at 1,000 lines of code and there were 300 lines commented. So we cleaned up a lot of code. Now, what does that mean? code base is smaller. You're not having to look a lot of unusable or unnecessary code work.
Hmm.
Goes right back to what we did with the DEX and Token Swapper. We got rid of code that wasn't being used, that we didn't even want to have in there. And so just get it out of there, get rid of it. Creates a cleaner code base. So what we'll be doing in the future is, as we do code refactoring, they won't be done as part of just our regular as we're working. We'll actually assign time to do that so that we're not having affecting everything else. We did run into that with Catacomb and Sergio working with the AI and some other things like that we kind of our major refactor gave him a headache, and I feel
Yeah.
bad about that.
Apologies to
That
Sergio.
that was not meant to happen, but he made a very good point that you can do that, but don't do it every time.
Hmm.
Don't make it a continuous thing.
Yeah.
Just do like, okay, here's one commit that has a bunch of refactoring, and then just fix that. Then you won't have to worry about it for a month or 2 months.
Right.
But continuous updates on that.
Great. Sounds good.
The infrastructure, yeah, that was provision new server for the Explorer, and this goes right into the improvements for the Explorer. Was one of the things we figured out, of course, was Explorer just needed more juice, needed better
Hmm.
CPU, more RAM, more hard drive space, running on SSDs, etc. And so we upgraded the server for that, and then upgraded a new server for Phantasma AI. Both of those needed just more juice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
And so that was good. And then so with the Explorer, we exploited on a high-powered server. Alex has spent some time optimizing the database, continued normalization, indexes, all of those kind of things, and then modified queries and the actual Explorer code to be able to retrieve just the data it needed as quickly as possible, etc. So there's a lot that's going on with the Explorer, and that is leading us in the direction of there's those key components, and
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Explorer is one of them. Explore, Tomb, our VMs or our Dockers, our documentation. There's a handful of things that need to be in place. Now, of course, we've still got other things such as Bridge and other things, um, but Explorer is vital.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we talked about before, it's a key piece to making the chain more efficient, or making it more efficient for developers, is having that nice new shiny back end and also front end, as well in the future. Because we know that it needed a bit of a redress too. So all that's being worked on to make it more usable, which is very, very nice.
Well, here's something else about the Explorer. Actually, Tech and I were just talking about this a couple hours ago. Um, we're modifying the API and going to be using the Explorer's backend, the Explorer's database. Everybody, I've had this question a couple times about, are we going to port over Web3?
Mm.
And when we were talking about events and the ability to use the Explorer database to listen for events by using, since it's PostgreSQL, we can actually set up a listener to listen for rows inserted into a PostgreSQL database, an events database. And people can subscribe to that and actually get notified for events.
Mhm.
So the Explorer is going to become kind of like the beating heart. It's going to become the hub for developers, the Explorer database and the Explorer API.
Awesome.
It's going to be the hub for the developers. They will be able to ping against, they'll be able to get their information, they'll be able to grab their events, they'll be able to listen for events. It's basically we want the Explorer to be the heart, where
Nice.
devs go to already pre-collated and organized data to be able to run their dApps and be able to
Mhm.
respond to on-chain events. So I
Yes.
think, that's why we're really bolstering the Explorer, putting on a better server, spending the time on it, because I think it's crucial for us to be able to have a good developer experience.
100%. 100%. And then finally, for the management.
Yeah, we're working on procedures. There's just hasn't been a whole lot of, this is the process you go to. This is a little more. There's different types of programming. There's this term cowboy programming, which is where you kind of give the dev a job to do, and he goes off and does his job and just comes back with the results. And so there's been a lot of cowboy programming, which we don't mind, in a smaller team. Um, but once they bring it in, there's got to be processes for processing it, such as there should be a process for releases. It shouldn't just be, hey, I've got this push and I'm just pushing it out there and releasing it.
Hmm.
No, it has to be released and it has to be put on testnet for the testers, given to the testers, and it never goes into production unless either Rob or I approve it.
Hmm.
That's it. Nothing goes into production unless Rob or I approve it.
Right.
Not because we want to be kings, but it's
Yeah.
because there needs to be a gatekeeper that looks over it and says, has this gone through testing? Um, has it been approved for has everybody tested, has all the mantis that are for it been closed,
Hmm.
et cetera.
Hmm.
Kind of goes through the process to make sure that anything that goes live is already run through the process. It's not going to be perfect, nothing ever
Yeah.
is, but it's a little less shooting from the hip.
Of course, we want to put a bow on it as much as humanly possible.
Absolutely. And then the other thing we've done is um, we're putting as much of a brake on the brakes on the on chain updates. We're going to slow those down. We've had a lot of them in the past year for a lot of different reasons, and they've all been valid reasons. However, we are going to kind of put some brakes on the chain updates so that we'll put out fewer updates that will be bigger.
Yeah.
The goal is stability. Because if
Yeah.
anybody's coming into the chain and they're a developer coming in the chain, they're like, oh my God, they update this every month. And so they're going to be like, how stable is it?
Hmm.
It's a visual thing.
Hmm.
Um, and so we want to make sure that any chain updates are done quarterly, maybe,
Hmm.
and they'll be bigger, but it just shows more stability. It shows more
100%. Hmm.
management.
100%. All right, let's move on. We're at about the half-hour mark, and we still got to do some Q&A. So
I know.
let's
Doc and I were talking about, hey, let's make this 30, 45 minutes, and
yeah, it
answer
ain't gonna
questions.
happen. That's
Like,
okay. We're gonna we'll spend as much time as we need, relatively speaking here, within reason. We want to make sure everyone's answer questions. I know there's questions in the chat as well. I'll come to those here after a bit. We're just gonna kind of do the updates on the percentages for the now. Remember, we changed our roadmap. Instead of saying, "Oh, we're gonna do this Q1, Q2, Q3," we're now next upcoming. So let's review. Farming liquidity tracker and reimbursements at 80%. And I'm sorry, I don't have the one from last month on here queued up, so I can't tell you how much of a percentage that is. Previous core chain, we just went over all of that. Dex went over that. Multi-sig wallet contracts in progress. Phantasma Hub, 80%. The Phantasma Hub is the place where things like voting live, where you can call up some data from the chain and do some other really cool functions. Neo, orphan tokens. Paul, do you want to talk about Neo at all?
I don't, but I will.
Sorry.
So yeah, so that we had some issues with trying to pull out getting a snapshot for everything and get everybody's token values and that kind of stuff. So, but I was able to write some scripts, and so I now have a snapshot of everything that went on Neo, everybody's balances, and I was able to actually go through and run some scripts to actually track down um, all the hacker wallets or the wallets that the hacker had, and then all the wallets they transferred to. And so I have a big long list there. So we believe that we've come to some consensus about um, all the legitimate wallets and tokens. However, we haven't finished that analysis. Have I believe Jay is still going through some of those addresses and confirming.
Yeah.
And we also are looking at which ones are team wallets. There's a handful of other things, but we
Mhm.
finally have got a snapshot. We finally have a massive list of wallets, and so we're it's progress. It's good progress.
It's progress. The
I
Neo's
think I spent
been
about 4 days
complicated.
4 days on just pulling the data,
Yeah.
just getting it all in there and writing the scripts to run down the rabbit hole that is
Hmm.
you know the hacker.
Yeah. I mean, part of the thing with the Neo is one, it's a completely different version of the current Neo, right? Is problem. So we had to write scripts, and then after we write those scripts, which thankfully we're able to do, there is a lot of manual verification, done by hand, that has to go on. The Neo thing has been a bit of a beast, but we are making progress. So for those of you who are still affected by that, I assure you that we are working on that as best and as expediently as possible. Catacomb Hunt Mode. Catacomb is Tech's game. For those who don't know, Tech, our lead software developer, this is his game that brought him initially to Phantasma that he wanted to build, and over time, well, we just gave him a job because he's really good. So he's back to building Catacomb. Thankfully, now that we have been able to bring on people like Paul, bring back people like Alex, widen the development team a little bit, organize things, Tech is able to work on his game more. So good job. That's great there. We've got different features coming. I don't know what hunt mode entails necessarily, particularly, but it is making progress. Solidity to Tomb Transpiler. It's a nice looking number there. I like to see that. It's above 50. That's what we want.
Well, yeah.
No pressure.
Well, there's been discussion there on, and it's spent at length with Sergio on this, is, we may be able to get it to 70% in the next year, and then it may take 5 years to get that last 30.
Yeah,
because of paradigm shifts.
Yeah.
The way the chains work.
Yeah.
And so this is where we agreed to. Transpiler will get us only so far. Documentation will get us the last mile.
Yes.
And so we have a path. I don't think it makes sense to make 100% Transpiler. That'd be fine. I think all the efforts we could provide, we have a lot more important things to deal with. Documentation will get us the last mile. Just be done with it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, there's probably never. We're talking about it's all object-oriented scripting, but 2 scripting languages. There's never going to be perfect parity between the 2. So I believe Paul is very correct. We get as close as we can to make it really work, and we give the examples in the documentation to help people, because there's going to be a little bit of juggling that goes on. So that's always good news. Revising the swap contract between Sol and KCAL. What is that one, Paul?
There was I believe in the Poltergeist wallet, there was a way to do atomic swaps.
Oh yeah.
And so we were going to make it one way, I believe Sol to KCAL or KCAL to Sol, I don't remember which way, and deprecate the other.
Okay.
But it needs a little TLC.
Okay. Yeah, in wallet swaps. A little rough right now. Proves the documentation ongoing. Third-party bridge from the business development side. We are constantly looking for bridge solutions that work. Where a lot of times it's not the easiest task. It's not like we can just go out and pick any particular one. There is a time cost, there is a money cost, and then there is is this thing safe cost, because obviously bridges are the probably number one attack vector for large scale attacks. And we want to make sure that whatever we do is safe and that it's from a vetted and secure team. I mean, doesn't even matter how secure you are. There's still always a chance. We do have Stellar Gate, who is working on a smaller bridge to help bring their tokens over from BSC. And so there is a path there. However, just to note, Phantasma will not be building or hosting a bridge from our end. Now, we'd love to be able to find a secure solution, integrate that into the wallet to make it a smooth experience for you, or whatever like that is down the road. But we're working on it, and we understand that it's important. We understand it's important to bring DeFi onto here. Paul and I are in absolute agreement there. I think how important it is to be able to bring other tokens over and create a DeFi environment. So it's always a work in progress. Improvements in Explorer, spoke about that. Voting, we're getting there, talked about that. Tomb, Chain API. I think a lot of this is a lot of repeats. Most of this stuff we've already covered here. So more example contracts for the big features, especially things like lock content, timed NFTs, those are probably some places where there's the things that we talk about a lot, but we don't have a really great example yet. Although, we do have some people building on it, but that's documentation, that's example contracts, is tested. This is stuff down the road, and the SDKs. So I think that pretty much sums that up. Thank you for the in-depth explanation, Paul. I know that everybody in the community really appreciates not only your delivery of the information, but I think that there is a definite sense of trust that's being built between the developers of the community, because we're not afraid anymore. Paul and I've talked about this extensively, to say this is where we went wrong. This is where we're in the past. This is where we're going right now, and this is how we want to fix stuff. So I think those are just important elements with transparency and things like that. So let's get to the questions. I'm going to scroll back up here. Hello, everybody. Hello. So, had a friend from our good friend Miguel Costa. Had a friend look at the change. She loved it. Had some doubts on the Oracle side. She asked, how many sources are you using to get real data? And how many sources does the Oracle use?
I don't know.
I don't think we have a really good example of that right now.
I don't think, I haven't really dug into the oracles. It's something, in my opinion, that is, it's not a direct concern right now.
Mhm.
It will be once we get a bunch of other things resolved.
Like a bridge, or
there's
stuff
a
that we need to be able to pull prices.
there's a handful of things that we're going to need to be using an Oracle for. But right now, it's not even on my map. That might be 6 months from now, we'll use an Oracle. I can tell you that as a Solidity developer for years, I think there's only a handful of times I ever used an on-chain Oracle, ever. And it was just to get a token price for something. So yes, oracles are important, and oracles can be used for a lot of things. But in the normal case of business, most developers don't even need them. We would definitely need to provide them. Absolutely. It's just something that, of all the things that we can do, it's also not a huge roadmap issue at this point.
Right. And there's a lot of outside APIs, off-chain things that people can integrate, hopefully, right, to be able to.
Well, it's
pull
according to
this
what you're
data.
using an Oracle for. If you're using an Oracle for, the only oracles really are for on-chain. If I need to access off-chain information in my contract, then I need a good, solid Oracle to do so. And so how often do you need to do that? I can say, relatively speaking, that most projects and contracts do not need oracles.
Fair enough.
99% of them. I'm sure there's plenty that need them, but it's not a high demand issue.
Let's see. Here's a great comment. Love Paul's honesty about the issues we have had. Folks, any questions? I want to. Okay. Here's the big elephant in the room. KCAL is an incentive, also gas to Phantasma chain. When will those KCAL be tradable? Not talking about Phantasma DEX. It can be CEX or DEX or on BNB or ETH. Okay, the short answer here is not anytime soon. That's not the answer that you want to hear, and I realize that. Look, first of all, there's two sides of this equation. One, the technical challenges, because we used to have our on-chain bridges where liquidity could be added and tokens could be swapped back and forth between PancakeSwap, KCAL, bring it over to Phantasma or whatever. Those aren't in place. Perhaps when bridges, we have this bridging solution open back up, people will be able to create or place more liquidity on DEXs for tokens. As far as a centralized exchange goes, right now, it's just not going to happen. It would be, first of all, not cost effective at all to get a listing anywhere to put a token on that currently has no use case. And I know that people are sitting on mountains of KCAL gas token. Like, I get it. It's a lot. But it's also going to be the first thing that people are going to want to sell so they can hold on to their soul. So if we paid $50,000 for listing plus put $20,000-$30,000 of liquidity, it would be a massacre. So it would just be wasted money, and that those funds can be used better right now, currently, to do other things on the chain. So we hope, and of course, we also offer, because we're sitting on a lot of it as the team too. We're offering, people that want to come build here, incentives like, we'll take care of your gas for a year. KCAL, in my opinion, I'm not going to get into too many semantics here. It is a utility token for a reason. It gives intrinsic value to Sol, right? Because if something cost 5 Sol, it's not going to cost me 5.45 Sol to cover the gas. It strengthens the value of Sol. So if right now it's not tradable, at some point it's going to be useful for its intended purpose, and it's going to help the Sol token in the long run. Now, that's not to say we won't list things later down the road, but right now it's just not on the roadmap. It's a problem that needs to be solved, I suppose. But until there's product, and we can see what the transactions of KCAL are looking like what's the volatility, what's the velocity of the token, how is it being used by projects who are building on chain, things like that. It's going to require those kind of metrics for us to be able to actually take a hard look and say, okay, where and when do we want to place this token back out on, well, at least like a centralized exchange. So I hope that kind of makes a little sense for everybody. Paul, any thoughts on that? Like, I can't really talk about price things that much, but as far as like, does that make sense?
It does. It does. There's uh, with the goal of having Uniswap style contracts on Phantasma. Once those are available, then it's just up to somebody to build, to actually host the vessels.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
is this, a 2-month, 3-month, or 6-month time
Hmm.
frame? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It really has to do with, as we're porting everything over, and how many road bumps, how many roadblocks we hit on our way to getting these Solidity contracts ported to Tomb.
Hmm.
It could be slick. It could be real slick and easy. There's a few assembly calls within the Uniswap contracts and a few other things, but in general, it should be pretty slick, and maybe it'll be quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually have another Solidity dev that I know that is pretty brilliant, and I've actually considered tasking him with porting some of the stuff to Tomb, and just seeing
Does
how
his name
quickly he
start
can.
with a G?
Oh, it does not.
Oh, okay.
Does not. It
I thought
does
I might know who you're
not.
talking about.
But no, this is a guy. He lives in Bali, so I already
Oh,
hate him.
oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah. 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 There's so
but
many Web3 people out in Bali,
I
man. It's
know,
like the spot. I know so
I
many people
know.
living out there.
Yeah, and he's not from Bali. He's of course just
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but he's a brilliant dev, and I've just considered tasking him with just that's his own job. Only job is
Hmm.
to do that, because I think that would be absolutely brilliant. He'd love it, and it would get us to where we need to go a lot faster. Because
Cool.
I'm dealing with so many other various things.
Yeah,
And
of
what about
course.
this? And
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
could just refactor the API and just manage
Right.
other things. And it's like, this is one of our key things we need to do, is get Solidity to Tomb and
Yeah.
get those rough spots. And
Yeah.
the
Let's
sooner
do it,
we can
baby.
get that, the sooner we can get so much more done.
I know. I know. I know. It's like just on the precipice, and just here, and Gunny, I hope I'm saying that your name correctly. I've been in Phantasma almost for 3 years. Been a lot of efforts into the chain. Now I see some. I think you mean like early chains out there with a lot of games. Look, yeah, you're right. Okay.
It's funny. I just posted an answer to that.
Oh.
Yeah. So most of your chains are deployed. They're like L2 EVM chains.
Hmm.
And so what can they focus on? They can focus on utilities and games and other things like that. They don't have to
Right.
focus on building the chain, building the explorer, building the bridges, all of these other things that we have to focus
Hmm. Yeah. This is a
on.
custom. This is a custom built chain with specific purpose. And so and I think one of the follow-ups is um I don't know, I lost it, but win products, win games, win games, win games, hey
Oh,
guys,
I think it would have
we don't
happened
know.
without the exploit. I think it would have already happened,
It would have,
well,
yeah, it
without
would
the
have, it
exploit.
certainly would have already happened,
Oh
but
my
at least
goodness.
now.
I looked at the way things were when, just before the exploit and how everything was just cranking.
Cranking, man, it was hot,
And
baby.
so by this time you guys would have been explosive.
Yeah,
But the exploit really, just took the wind out of the sails.
it certainly did, and it took a
Yeah.
long time. We had to redo everything, folks. I mean, like, that's just the long and short of it. We
Yeah.
basically had to rebuild a significant part of this blockchain to make it work. And right now, of course, there is like the Web3 gaming mini bull happening, I suppose. Um, Now's the time for product market fit. And we do have, of course, we have zero control over when developers launch games. All we can do is build the best damn tech platform for that purpose that we're able to do. The good news is, excuse me, the good news is we do believe that there should, hopefully I'm hoping the end of the year, we should have a couple things. I mean, from our communications that we have, actually picking up steam. We know that Wonder Man, they've got their live stream coming on, I think next week or maybe this weekend. So there should be some great updates there. And I know that Garth, whenever he makes up his mind to do the stream, it's because he's got something to show. We've seen Race Hub. We've seen a lot of stuff coming out of there. We've got the real world licenses, which are incredibly difficult to get, um, especially for like an indie developer. Now, when PlayStation or whoever develops Gran Turismo goes out there and goes, "Hey guys, we need our licenses for this year," they're like, "Okay, cool, whatever." But for us to get those real world licenses for GOTY, that takes a lot. It means that these manufacturers that Garth's been able to demonstrate a high technical understanding of why these cars will work in game, the physics, things like that. So it's all very, very cool. We have Battle of Gods making progress. We have Stellargate, who are about to release modules and are working on their own kind of mini decks and bridge. We have One World Project, who I talk with quite a bit. For those who know, this is like basically a public, almost Kickstarter like incubator and DAO to help fund small projects that we're really, really looking forward to being on chain. So there are definitely things coming. Like I said, though, the only thing we can do is just build the best damn chain that we can, and we're proud of the work that we do. This isn't the absolute, really amazing, for better or for worse, shining example of open source software development, right? Um, it's a small team, but we make big strides. The business development team are, I mean, on calls, talking to new developers, potential new developers. We're trying to formalize some partnerships. I think we just got something cool. I can't quite announce yet, but it's got to do with like tournaments and things like that. So we're kind of building these ancillary partnerships. And, of course, I did a lot of travel the last month. So I went to Token 2049. I went to Philippine Blockchain Week, and then, well, it wasn't quite with Phantasma. I with the other employer that I have, I went to London here a few weeks ago. And let me tell you something. Um, we made the right decision. Wanting with our early efforts, wanting to get familiar and make some friends and some contacts in the Southeast Asian area. My hope is that, and I met people who were excited about C# blockchain. They're like, C# blockchain. Oh my God, this is yeah, this is cool. I hope that we can get more real world stuff this beyond gaming on chain, where people can build really cool applications that use our technology. I see in Southeast Asia and just that region, where there's just a lot more room to build really cool things on chain that aren't games or aren't entertainment or whatever. We made some great contacts in the Philippines, marketers or key opinion leaders, influencers, and some game developers, of course, as well. Other development houses, just really great list of people that very friendly, very excited. And I know that, again, I can't really totally say, but I know some of the projects here building on Phantasma are already very deeply involved with some of those contacts. So it was definitely a win. And, I think that a lot of things people come up with, that it's like, what's business development doing? What's business development, just like development side. We're cranking away every day, and doing our absolute best to, and again, as development comes up, business development follows, and maybe we get something. It's like this. It's a thing that we do in tandem as we improve on the chain. And I truly believe that once we get a product out, or on chain, right? Not Phantasma, but with our developers on chain, and people see the power of the smart NFTs and how cool it is and how cheap it is to transact and just all the awesome features, I think there's going to be a real awakening and people coming in to look at this and be like, damn, this is freaking cool, and it's going to be up to all of us. It's time. The community's been pumping lately. Everyone's getting excited again. Thank you to all the people in the soldiers out there who are, putting out content on Twitter and being very, very good about consistently retweeting and things like that. Like, your efforts definitely are noticed. I think that if we just keep this continue, it's time to catalyze this community again. And, we are definitely getting there. Trying to think, there's a couple other points I was trying to remember, but I got cold medicine in my brain. So I don't know stuff. I hope that kind of covers everything. Let's see, anything else? And then also we have people in the community also working hard and developing stuff on their own. They're using the Specky AI, which has been like really, really awesome. All the feedback that we have, which is great. I think things look pretty good right now, personally. If, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I know it's been a long time coming, but I assure you that every day, the people that are involved with this chain are absolutely putting in their all to make it the best that it can be. And I think it's time. We're gonna get our day in the sun. People ask, when marketing, when this, when that. Look, it's not time to market. It's not time to market because we're still have a few things we need to put in place. We get some product out, we get some eyes on. Yes, we're going to get out there and we're going to do some more stuff, right? But we've been, for the last year or so, going out there on Twitter Spaces, go out and talk about stuff. I do have an interview on. There went Paul. Oh, he may have had to jump for another call. I do have interview on Saturday. I'll post the link here. With something online. But when the time comes, we're gonna get there. Oh, Paul's back. Hey, listen,
That was nice.
Yeah, he disappeared. Anyway, hope that covers everything. I'm trying not to ramble. Like I said, I'm really under the weather. One more. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. No leaks. Okay. Game Evolution. Oh, yeah, we're definitely still. Game Evolution has been a great pipeline for potential game developers. We're in talks with several people that they put us in contact with, so that's definitely an ongoing thing. Though that's they've been actually very, very amazing in their support, so that's definitely still happening. Yeah, so unfortunately we are at the end. They're crypto gamer. We are towards the end of the thing, but of course you'll be able to review this. And then, yeah, we will have kind of the ecosystem growth update posted up on socials post convo here. So, Paul, anything else inspiring?
Well, first of all, it's Steve Irwin Day. So if anybody has,
baby,
celebrated Steve Irwin, then
yeah,
it's a good day to remember him and all he did
yeah,
for animals.
absolutely.
And no, I think we're at a great place where we have great vision. We have a great team. The team's growing. The team has been very, very successful. Regardless of what people may believe, this team has been very successful and will continue being so.
And we're going to look damn good doing it.
We are, well, some of them might.
All righty. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you for sticking through the whole thing. We really appreciate it. Of course, you'll be able to watch the replay on the YouTube. And I think that's about it. Say goodnight,
Absolutely. I
Paul.
appreciate good night, Paul. I appreciate everybody being here and I appreciate everybody hanging with us.
Absolutely. And we look forward to being able to update you with more cool stuff next month. So,
and absolutely, Doc, hang in there and I hope you feel better.
Thank you, my brother. I am going to go form a cocoon of blankets around me as soon as this is over.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. See you next month. We'll see you in the funny papers.
All right.